NFL week number 8, and oh my gosh, how we put this together was like spit and popsicle sticks, duct tape, and WD-40. Ron is unable to join us for this show, and I have found two guys that I have been dying to get caught up with to talk about NFL. This is literally going to be a working video, so very excited about that. I have Tony Gordon, Derbify, former winner of the Circa Millions, and very good NFL guy, and Kiev O'Neill from the Odds Breakers. People should be familiar with him. He has lots of his own content and does lots of videos and such. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing great.
Doing well. Thanks for having me on, Chris.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you letting me tag Chris's hand and getting in there. So Ron's hand, excuse me.
Anyway, here's where we're sitting. This is going to be, I'm behind. I've had a lot of stuff to do this week. I've got workers all over the house. I've got whatever problems that can happen. And I'm a little bit behind. And for the life of me, before we get back to before we go to looking back to last week, why in the world would Minnesota and the Rams be talking about trading Stafford? I mean, that's some serious trade stuff. Cooper Kupp's on the trade block. Stafford in talks with Minnesota, and Kiev's eyes tell me he doesn't know anything about this, does he?
No, you say you need to get caught up. I kind of have to get a little caught up in the NFL as well. I fire on the early lines, and then it's all college for me, because college came out. And I just knee deep in college. When the more information of the NFL comes out, then I start, hitting it again. But I that's insane to me because they're playing each other, Chris. I mean, what does that say about Sam Darnold? And yeah, please, by all means, I would love to hear your opinions on it.
Tony,
I was surprised actually to hear about the Cooper Kupp more than I was the Stafford. That information I think just came out recently. So, everybody's looking for a receiver now with all these injuries. So it doesn't surprise me that there's going to be some high bidder out there looking for. So,
yeah, I think the Rams are good. I mean, well, they're waving the white flag. Obviously, that's what that kind of means to me, doesn't it?
Well, why would you even play Cooper Kupp?
It seems as when you're going to get rid of your best receiver and the only guy that can keep you in games behind center there, I don't see what else you're going to have left. So,
I think it's actually perfect for them. I don't think.
Fortunately, they.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, fortunately, they got me through Survivor this week. So they didn't trade away Stafford that early, luckily enough. So
that was a hell of a game. I think it's actually the perfect move for the Rams because I don't think as somebody that bet Rams to win the division because of the price, knowing that San Francisco was going to be what they have turned into be, or thinking that it was quite possible that they could be in the situation they're in. I figure the Rams could be the contenders, but I still don't think that they really have enough. I think they're better off kind of. They've got a handful of young guys to build around, and they can get a fair amount for Stafford and Kupp and build off of the draft picks that they can get from that.
Well, not only that, Tampa Bay just lost 2 receivers. That Evans injury looked really bad, like a really high-grade hamstring injury that could be 3 to 4 weeks. And obviously, trying to win the game, and Godwin is out for the season. This is a team that's competing for that easier division with New Orleans and Carolina there. It's just Atlanta. That's a logical place for Cooper Kupp to land, in my opinion. And it does. And Chris, thinking about it, yeah, it does make sense for the Rams to kind of throw in the towel. That defense is not getting them to the playoffs. I actually want to have a bad bet on them to make the playoffs this year, but the injury bug just creeped up on them in the beginning of the season. So it makes a lot of sense for that kind of team like Tampa to get them.
Tony, anything to add on that?
No, I agree with that. It's Tampa needs somebody really bad. The Bills just went out and grabbed Cooper, so they got somebody, but I mean they could clearly use another one if they wanted one as well. I don't know if they can afford him or not. But yeah, that's a great fit for him. I mean, with these two last injuries, I just don't know if they're willing to throw the others on the shelf to go grab Cup in the situation or not. That's a price tag probably. So.
I don't think Darnold's hurt at all or anything. I don't think that's the issue. But you know what? Actually, I forgot. My reaction was either he better damn well be hurt, or why in the hell would you lay that out there if you're in the Minnesota Vikings organization? That basically doesn't send the message that I would want to the players that we don't have enough. We got to do something. We don't trust our quarterback, right?
Well, here's the thing. Quarterbacks are really getting injured after this week. And so maybe they think they need a backup plan. They're going to say, Stafford, we're still sticking with Darnold. And they tell the whole team that. And they say, Stafford, you're a leader, be there in case. I mean, when you're 5-1, the worst thing that can happen is your quarterback going down. So I understand it from that perspective. Maybe they're starting to realize that two quarterbacks are better than one in big situations. So, thinking more about it, I would take that angle.
Let's go back to last week.
Who they got in backup? We got Nick Mullins backup. We got right.
Yeah.
Is that his backup behind McCarthy? Yeah, it would be Nick Mullins.
I think so. I think so.
Yeah, yeah, with that Darnold thing, I think everybody is just waiting for him to fall off a cliff. I think that everybody's been surprised by how well he's done this year, and I think it might even be including the Vikings in general, and that's why I think they're looking with open eyes to another option. Now they're a 5-1 team, so I don't know why you would want to take out something that's already working. It seems like a clock that's hitting on noon every single day. So I don't know. So they played very well. Their defense has been great. So
I think
a tough game for them in the spot they have this week.
I preached for it for 2 years that I believe that the team should be carrying two quarterbacks that they trust. I mean, and I think it's just critical because you cannot have the fall off that you have with some of these quarterbacks to literally not having anybody behind them. And I think it's the wave of the future. I'd like to take a look back at last week and just quickly run through the games and basically see, was there anything to be gleaned from it? I'll start with the Thursday night game, the Broncos Saints. I'm pissed off. I got stuck on the Saints in teasers, and they couldn't even cover teasers, and you knew you were in trouble right away. And the Saints have fallen off the cliff, basically. I don't know. They really, really look in trouble, and I believe there was some conflict or something negative with Kamara this week that came out. I forget what it was. I heard it out of the corner of my eye. We don't get Carr back for another week or two, and I'm not even sure that Carr can save this. I don't understand why they weren't able to get more going. I mean, I know Hill was out also, but Denver carved them up on the ground. I mean, just carved them. Did you guys have any involvement with do you think Denver is viable going forward, or do you think they just beat the crap out of a completely defenseless team?
It's funny. I was on Denver early and had some rough beating in Seattle. I think I actually pushed that bet, and then I was kind of like timid a little bit with them, and then it's almost kind of like with a rookie quarterback. If he gets confidence emotionally, he just all of a sudden performs better. But if he's also hit hard and not playing well, it's like he performs worse. It's kind of a lot of variance between those two outcomes. You got to be careful with it and spot bet it, in my opinion. I was on Denver -2.5 and went to 3 in the contest. I still wish I would have took it in the contest. I didn't. I wanted to wait for injuries, and that didn't pan out too well for me anyway this week. It was a rough week of injuries and boneheaded coaching moves. But yes, I think Denver is someone you got to be careful with. I don't think they're that unders team that people assume it playing in Denver, often, and Sean Payton and. I think we have to be careful betting against them for sure.
Tony, what did that game do for you?
Yeah, I think I think that defense is really good. I saw it early in the season, and they've been really holding teams down. And I think it's all been independent on can they score points offensively. They were able to just push the Saints around just all night long. So there was really not much competition there. There's a lot of injuries on that side of the ball, and I think that team kind of just quit kind of early. So I don't know. I wouldn't take that so much last Thursday night into much, but you take the last few games where they've been underdogs and they've come out and they've really done very well. So they play really well at home. I'll see them squeaking out a few more games. That they that especially with that defense. They play opportunistic, try to get the ball. On the opponent's side of the field and short field it, and they're able to capitalize with the field goals, and in this case, a lot of touchdowns. So, I don't know. Look out for them. They could be somebody to watch out for if that kid gets going.
Tony, are you doing any modeling, or are you doing a power rating method? How are you garnering the information that you use to decide how you're valuing teams each week for your betting and your contest plays?
As far as power rankings, is that what you're talking about?
What do you rely on are you working off of modeling or creating your own power ratings or observation? What is the method that you're using?
Yeah, most of mine's intuitive, and just finding situational stuff, just from years and years of doing this. It's, I track a lot of my information, a lot of my tendencies, and a lot of my biases, and try to stay away from some of that stuff. And when I can, and I notice it, some seasons are easy for me to notice, and some are much more difficult, such as this, where I was heavy on quite a few teams early in the season and now have to take a step back and pivot and realize that, maybe they're not quite as good as they were, or they're a lot better than I thought they were. So, and one of them being Denver, who we just spoke about.
Kiev, I know that you run very nice modeling systems for both college and pros. How much do you rely on your models for NFL, and how much can you depend on it at this point?
Thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, reliability is tough because what's funny is when you look at all three of my models, and one is intuitive, similar to Tony's, spot related and things like that, long rest, short rest, that it factors in more and more as the season goes on and as these NFL seasons are longer. But it's hard for all three of them to agree with each other, because I have the power ratings, which more factors in injury. Then I have the perfect algorithmic metric, but that doesn't factor in the injury. So you kind of got to look and be like, wow, I'm so off here. For instance, the Rams, you have to give them points back when offensive linemen come back, when Cooper Kupp comes back, and Puka Nacua and things like that, if they don't get traded, right? It's a balance. And to be honest with you, I'm close to 50% like this year. I'm not blowing it away this year in the NFL. I was up until this last weekend and I'm down. But from a sample size, you don't just look at 1 year, you look at a long time. I'm trying to be a little bit more intuitive based upon spot betting and factoring in. I got to be a little bit better at factoring injuries. I do disagree with the market. I absolutely disagree with the market, because if you didn't disagree with the market, we wouldn't be betting. But I use all three now, Chris. I think as the season goes on, I lean towards the algorithm itself more than anything, because that's like a no lie thing. People assume for so long this year that Pittsburgh was bad. and then they assume that the Jets were good every single week. I try to have the algorithm sniffs that out a little bit more.
Tony, what instead of going game by game over last week, what stands out to you from last week's games? Surprises, observations, whatever.
I guess, I woke up early to that London game and saw New England down 10-0, and just figured the Jags were there to quit and move on to the next week and see where they got. And, they came back and fought, and I'm not saying New England's much, but they actually showed some life. So, I mean, I really didn't think Doug Peterson was wanted there anymore, and I kind of thought those guys might just quit on him. So that was a little bit of a surprise to me. So we'll see where they go from there. They were supposed to be much better than there. They have talent on their roster. If they can get coached right and get some stuff put together, maybe they can go put up a few more wins the rest of the season. Another, I've been high on the Seahawks all year, and they finally got a few guys healthy back in the lineup, and they put pressure on Cousins, and that defense actually showed up. I've been expecting them all year to show up, so I'd like to see where they go from there too. This will be an exciting game this next week also for them. So those are a couple games that I saw early that stood out to me. So.
Anything stick out to you from last week, Kiev? Surprises or things that happened exactly the way you wanted? I know you were frustrated. I remember that. So what observations did you make, and where'd you get clipped?
LaFleur is a very good offensive coordinator still, but as far as coaching decisions, he should have went for two. Down up 1 point from that touchdown because it was the third quarter. In the first half, I'm a little bit more okay with just going up by 2 with the extra point, but it almost cost him the game at the end of the day. And it did cost me my spread. Of course, I'm bitter. And if you bet the other side, congratulations. But, the Texans tried, or the Packers tried in every way to give up that game, and the Packers still won. I think the Texans are slightly above average in my power ratings, and I think I'm correct. I think the market's wrong on them. But there's a lot of coaching things. I think the lines reflect bad coaching. The Raiders, for example, it's a tempting line to bet, and people laid it with the Rams because you don't know what's going to happen with Pierce, but Pierce makes the dumb decision that actually screws the Rams because the Rams bettors – you probably took like 6 and 6.5, right? They got it late. And imagine being down by 8, less than 3 minutes left. It's 4th and 4, but the touchdown's right in front of you. You kick a field goal. It blows your mind. And you can think about 2 ways. What's the line on the Raiders game this week with Pierce?
Thank you, Coach.
And switch them with Jim Harbaugh. I guarantee you the same roster. It would switch completely. You would get a couple points past the 3 even just because of that difference. But he's so erratic that you're going to get tempted to play the Raiders a lot. And I fell for it once this year. But the variance with Pierce is so high. It's somewhat disgusting. The Devontae Adams thing to the Jets, overblown completely. I'm glad I stayed away from that game. I actually leaned the Steelers, but the Russell Wilson thing kind of threw me. I didn't know he'd play that good. I thought they should have left Fields in. The injuries killed a lot of things this week. Who knew that Deebo Samuel was going to have pneumonia that day? Ayuk going out, but you also had Jennings. I thought, okay, the Jennings loss, he's their 3rd best receiver. He's not going to make it. Well, Purdy didn't have any of the top receivers that whole game. Now, the way Purdy played, Kansas City was going to win anyway, but maybe Purdy plays better. I don't know. So they're really hurting coming into this Dallas game, but Dallas always loses to the good teams too. So it's just lots more has been thrown into the injury power rating type thought. What's Tampa now without their 2 receivers? What's the 49ers now that they're going to get Pearsall and other guys going? So I guess that's my takeaway from last week. coaching and injuries.
Yeah, it's it seemed like a feast or famine type of week for a lot of people. I don't know that you looked at the gold standings, Tony. You're in gold, right? Tony?
I am, yeah.
Yeah. I believe
I don't
that
even know where I don't know where I'm sitting at. I know I'm in the bottom.
I think that there was only there was like 5, 6, or 7 people that had 4 wins or more. I mean, it was a really rough week, and there was a bunch. There was 20 that had 0. So extreme results. I got stuck on the Patriots last week. I thought their defense was better. Belichick said, the coach is complaining that they're not trying hard enough. Belichick saying, well, you got the same players I did, and they were leading the league in Russian defense. So little strife in there. I find unusual. Kind of annoying that the Patriots got out to that 10-0 lead. They looked like they were okay. And the Jaguars I still have as one of the worst defenses. And New England wasn't able to do anything with them. So New England's going to be both of those teams are frustrating teams. You would think that this is a bellwether moment for the Jaguars to turn their season around, but just can't be sure. And I was kind of surprised. I'm not surprised Seattle won. I'm surprised at how easily Seattle won. I didn't have anything involved in that game. I fell for the banana in the tailpipe. My model did not list a play on Buffalo. It had the exact line, 8.5, and I played the Titans anyway, just because of previous data, history, and situations, and I got suckered on that. Last week before, I said I felt like Cincinnati was one of the teams that I understood who they are. Basically, I feel that their variance level is not that wide, and lo and behold, they can't score offensively all of a sudden. So shows how much I know. I don't think you can depend on them to necessarily score like I thought I would. Houston, I don't know how they do it. As you said, Kiev, smoke and mirrors every week. Somehow they're in these games. It's an L, but it's a W for the bettors. And Green Bay, I don't know. I had Houston, but plus the points, but I don't know. We all kind of felt Green Bay was going to play better. So I think both teams did not play as well as I expected them to play. Skip. Detroit Lions, Vikings, exactly what I would have expected. Down to the wire. I think the Lions were certainly the better team. They're proving it. They're facing adversity on the road, multiple occasions, and able to come back. They're the real deal. And I don't think there's any question about that. And they didn't, and the Vikings showed themselves well. I'm not, I thought that Pierce move was the dumbest thing I've seen. And I just laughed my ass because I had a full play on the Raiders +7. But I saw some other people argue because it was 247 with 3 timeouts, and that particular team had such a poor chance of making that 2-point conversion that it wasn't as bad of a decision as you might think. And I guess thinking about it, there was no way they were going to make a touchdown and a 2-point conversion anyway. So kind of had a point. It wasn't as – I'm just saying there is an argument for the other side. I still would have – they weren't going to make the touchdown from the 9-yard line, so you might as well take some points. I don't know. Maybe you can get a turnover off the kickoff, or you get them on a 3-and-out. So it wasn't a complete another dumb shit move as much as I thought it was. Commanders, they are what I thought they are. 49ers played worse. I had Kansas City. 49ers played worse than I thought they would. I've said for last 3 or 4 weeks, they're mediocre. Their defense bottom 10 in the league or right there. They've got bigger problems than people realize. And Purdy laid an egg for the first time. Steelers, they look pretty good. So they should suck it up next week like they always do. Up, down, up, down. Tampa Bay, what are we going to do with that team? That team was that was an exciting team with a good future here. And now they've got two receivers. How do you handicap that game coming up? And I'm not even talking about Chargers, Arizona. So sorry about, I just wanted to run through each game from last week on my comments. Do either of you have anything to add on last week based on what I said?
I disagree.
Yeah, just real quick, I think that we need to start getting used. Sorry, go ahead, Kev.
Okay. I think you're on a little bit of a delay out there in Cali. Not a big deal. I will just say I do disagree with the Rams Raiders. I don't think you go for 3 there, even if you have your timeouts, because now you have a long field to go, and with the amount of seconds you're going to have. After you get the ball back and use your timeouts, it's more improbable, but we can find the exact numbers on that, but there is exact numbers favoring the go for the touchdown. And if your team's that bad and you can't get 2 and that's your thought process, you shouldn't even be in the game anyway, in my opinion. That's all I had to say, Chris. I think I had Detroit as well. I'm mad that I swept them off for San Fran in the contest. I screwed that up, but I had Detroit plus 2.5, and I also had Detroit with Washington as a teaser, and that was like the least sweat teaser, Chris, I probably had in the last 3 years was Detroit and Washington, because Detroit was never really out of that game, and Washington was dominating the Panthers. But here's the thing: the public is going to keep fading the Panthers. Is there going to be a buy point on them, Chris? I think this is not even really an NFL team almost, and they're preposterously bad, and they're injured too. And it's like you think that maybe they can trade someone who's good enough to trade. I guess maybe Deontay Johnson, but I'm not even sure if he's that good. Thielen's hurt, so there's got to be a point where we're going to make a hold your nose bet on the Carolina Panthers, bud. But my numbers are probably not going to say it from an algorithmic standpoint. I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Tony, I'll comment on that after you follow up with what you were going to say about last week.
Yeah, I was going to say we just need to get started getting used to just major injuries week to week. It just seems like every week it's a key component of somebody's offense or defense, whether it be 1 or 2 or 3, and it absolutely changes the following week drastically. And that's why it's so important to just think of this as a week-to-week league, in my opinion, because if you get heavy on any of these teams, it seems like you're going to lose your 2 best receivers, like Tampa Bay or such like that. Again, you talked about having a backup quarterback and a reliable quarterback. We need to have backups almost in every position these days, the way that it is, at least somebody reliable. And then another thing I want to take away is
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Just the public. And the against the spread. I mean, look at this, dude. In the home dog situation, have you guys both taken note of that? These last 2 weeks, the only home dog that covered was Arizona last night. In the past, 12, 13 games, and coming from somebody who has always been a home dog player and tries to pick their spots from week to week on those. I have struck out about 4 times the past 2 weeks. So altogether, it's been quite ugly. So
yeah, actually, Pittsburgh was the first dog that covered after 12 consecutive. And I mentioned last week that back in the day, I would have been one of those guys saying, I'm betting all the home underdogs across the board, and there's no way they'll go below 500. And that would have just gotten buried. So I don't understand why Tampa, you see this every year where we lose a major superstar playing in garbage time. And Tampa Bay was playing in garbage time when Evans got hurt. And you just hate to see that. I see too many coaches leaving players, their superstars in too long. And I don't know what the the compromise is, or what you're really supposed to do, because nobody likes to wave a white flag. And we have seen some amazing comebacks periodically, but it's just tough. It's rough to see that. So onward to this week, we got Minnesota and the Rams to start off. And boy, what a mess. I cannot believe they're having trade discussions. Where do you guys stand on this game?
I guess
Yeah,
I'll
go
go
ahead.
first. So my numbers say Minnesota. It's sure going to like Minnesota a lot more if Kupp and Stafford get traded to their team. Here's the thing. What are we seeing with the Rams? An injured team, but they're still not getting a lot of offensive linemen back. And Cooper Kupp, does he move the needle? How many points? I don't know. But they're coming off a win. The Vikings coming off a loss if you're looking at a spot perspective. I can't disagree with what my numbers say. There's not a home field advantage more than a half a point to a point in LA. There's not. There hasn't been. And I don't know how you get below the 3 now. I know a service that we follow, Chris, released the Rams at +3 about an hour and a half ago that we saw. But I disagree with it. And I think my numbers say Vikings.
Tony, any comments on the game?
So when I take a look at this, I actually think that this defense of the Vikings should hold these Rams down. Now, with that being said, when we talk about the situation, they just came off a really, really tough game with the Lions. And I think we all know the against the spread. What is it? Everybody, we're 0-6 against the spread if you played the Lions the following week now. So that physical team, I don't know, short week. I got to lean the team that's healthier, the team that's probably got a little more oomph in them, and that would be the Rams probably, especially if I can catch the hook in the 3.5. If I have to sit on the 3, I probably would be more leaning towards that Viking side. But if I can get the 3.5, I think I might do Rams. So
I'll give you 3.5.
I think that's what it's sitting at currently, right?
Yeah. So, Tony, you're on a delay. So when you do talk, go ahead and keep on talking, because it's easier for us to stop than for you to pause and wait for us to finish. So going forward, inject yourself and keep talking. More than likely, that's the easier way to do it. And then as far as we're running through this list, we're not trying to necessarily share picks or anything like that. We're trying to gain some perspective into how we're looking at the game, concerns, anything that we can kind of think of that would give us, the process of developing of, who we have interest in and who we don't have interest in. As far as I've got to concur with Kiev on that game. I'm just going to repeat the same comments I said last week about the Rams, and that is they are absolutely amazingly overrated as mediocre. I mean, this team, how many they won the turnover battle and barely beat the Raiders. I mean, the Raiders gifted them. The Raiders are in chaos, and they were able to cover that spread, doing stupid things. This Rams defense rates right down there at the bottom. The offense is almost in the bottom. This is a bottom tier team. And if you're expecting Kupp off of the injury list, if they're putting him on the trading block and Stafford, that's got to tell me that they're waving the white flag. If they play, doesn't mean they're not going to make an effort and they're not going to try. They certainly are. But those are the things that I'm thinking about is really, we know that the teams the week after playing Detroit are all getting crushed. So that's been an issue that Detroit beats teams up. And I do like Minnesota. I think they're a good team. So
can I say one more thing?
Yep.
Imagine if you are Cooper Kupp and Matt Stafford looking at your team doing that. And I don't know how much Cooper Kupp's on social media, but my wife follows their wives. So just in case they're not, their wives are telling them exactly what's going on. I mean, that has got to be a little disheartening to be like, what the hell? But if that's the case, is Stafford even going to start this game if they're really shopping him? I mean, if this is serious shop and we get to Thursday and they really want to blow it up, you might be getting a bargain here. It's almost like a free roll, but that's all I have to say about it.
Yeah, that's a good point that they could, Stafford could all of a sudden come up with an issue or something. It's really makes it really hard. We've had discussions recently on when to get involved in games because there's a lot of people that preach you can't win on game day. Well, game day moves have been okay for me. I'm not worried about that because I think the longer you wait for information, the better off you are in a lot of cases. And you're right, Kiev. They could all of a sudden sit Stafford, and then where are you going to be with the Rams on one of these weeks? The trade deadline is after this week, or is it after next week? But it's within the next 10, 12 days for sure. So got to be careful with a lot of these teams. So I haven't even made a bet this week yet, I don't think, other than teasers.
November 5th.
I'm just wanting to digest everything as much as I can. I looking at the Lions, I mean, I don't know. How can you not tease them down to 1? I mean, what else would you do with that game?
The Lions, yes, for sure, 10-point teaser with 2 other teams. But it's also a bad spot, in my opinion, for them after getting a big division win. That's the worry. I think the Titans are a different defense when Xavier Sneed is playing. So I'm kind of waiting on that information to make better decisions on that game or just leave it alone. The Titans are rock bottom. I don't want to see Will Levis. I think he's worse than Rudolph, even though you didn't see much life from him last week. But yeah, I mean, they're a banged up team. Treylon Burks is out, their wide receiver, but they still have Hopkins, and Hopkins is also dealing with some lower leg soreness. So if guys like Sneed and Hopkins are back in the lineup, I'm not sure if I would even tease it. I would possibly bet the Titans and hold my nose, but I have to look at my numbers. What about you, Tony?
Yeah, that Titan game listen, dude, this is a team that's lost 28 out of the last 30 games, right? So, I don't know how much faith you can have in that team whatsoever. I think what I see, they're 2-12 on the road in the last 14 road games. So, I don't know what they have to offer. They got 2 washed up wide receivers. I hate to say that about Hopkins and Ridley, but I mean, they seem like their heads are out of it. Nobody's really even getting them the ball, so I can see why. And that there are also a couple others that could be on the trade. I mean, I know they're older and maybe have some tread on the tires gone, but like at the same time, somebody would use them more than the Tennessee is currently. So with that being said, this is a sandwich game. They are going on playing Green Bay next week, divisional wise. So this could be a look ahead. It's a spot where Detroit could take them lightly and kind of just cruise through, and Tennessee could get in there in the back door some way or another. And they have done really well against Detroit in the past. I think 8-2 straight up in the last 10 games. Tennessee is against Detroit, believe it or not. So. I don't know the span on the years of that. I just thought it was 8-2 straight up. So, but other than that, Detroit should smash them if they're there. If they're there to play, it shouldn't even be a close game. It should be, double digits in the first quarter. And just keep continuing. But you never know with this situation.
I failed to mention that Jameson is suspended for 2 games for substance, something or another, and performance enhancing. So he's going to miss this game against the Titans and the very important game against Green Bay. So that's a little disappointing, but it also brings to light what Tony mentioned with the injuries. Kansas City is, facing huge injury issues. Detroit's faced a lot of injury issues, and they keep rolling. And I honestly believe that Detroit stands out at this point in the NFC, clearly. And Kansas City and maybe Baltimore are standing out in the AFC at this point. And Kansas, and you can't trust Baltimore, but you can't because of their defense. So it's going to be interesting to see. It's amazing how these really good teams that are very well coached. Pittsburgh overachieving with, they've had a lot of injury hurdles this year. And, these really good coaches are able to put things together. I mean, I think the Rams are a much worse team than people realize. And I think the coaching there has actually just made them as presentable as they are. That's the way I feel about the Rams. I think coaching has to be a real consideration with teams at this point because it's been mentioned, these coaching failures, these screw ups, are costing, and it's a fine line between winning and losing. Although LaFleur got away with his not going for 2, but you guys, do you have anything on Baltimore, Cleveland, or the Packers, Jags? Oh wait, no, I'm in the wrong. Yeah, that's right. Never mind. Go.
Okay, because you did mention Kansas City, and I do want to talk about them later. Baltimore, Cleveland is down to 9. If it's Dorian Thompson-Robinson, I think that I would stay away from this game and probably lean Baltimore, but Baltimore has a lot of choke in them, as you know. Baltimore first halves probably look really good. But if it's Jameis Winston, he gives the Cleveland Browns the best chance to be in this game, but he has a high variance. Cornerbacks, safeties, secondaries jump his routes, and they do get some picks. But when he's on, he is the only chance the Browns really have to score enough points to keep up with this Baltimore team. And why wouldn't it be Jameis Winston? I am completely against Dorian Thompson-Robinson, but you have pressure from the people that drafted him and Stefanski, who I don't think is a good coach anyway. But right now, I have no reason to touch this 9. It's a number that's doing teaser protection, and it's also a number that probably is slightly too low. Maybe if it gets past 10 to 11, hopefully on game day, this could be a bet for me. What was the other game you just mentioned? Jaguars.
Green Bay Jags.
I think this Packers-Jaguars line is a pretty sharp line, in my opinion, because the Jaguars are opposite, terribly coached, but they really have some good players. That Brian Robinson, that receiver they drafted, I think I said his name right, is an absolute stud. I think Trevor Lawrence, and when this team is not fumbling the ball around, can be very competitive, but it's a poorly coached team, so it's tough. I mean, they make some dumb decisions, and they're just not playing well together as a team. But when they do play well together, you be like, "Well, okay, this is why my power ratings are high on them." How bad is their defense is my question, Chris. Because if it's really that bad, yeah, maybe it's the Packers side, but I don't know. They still have Josh Allen on the defensive end that could give Love some issues in this game. And I think they're getting some secondary back. And they might have even gotten back last week.
No, not Josh Allen, Trevor.
Okay. Well, Josh Allen's their pass rusher. They have a guy named Josh
Allen.
I'm
sorry.
Yeah. And Trevor, Trevor's supposed to be good. He got paid like he's good. But, I just feel that this is a pretty good line to where it is, because even if LaFleur makes a few mistakes, he's still a much better coach. LaFleur, being from the Shanahan tree, is just like Shanahan. blows games, makes dumb decisions, but an amazing offensive coordinator. So, I mean, that he's a better coach, but the Packers coming off a win, Jags coming all the way home. I think it's a great line. I'm not touching it.
Tony, thoughts on those two games? Any info?
The Cleveland, all I can say is, Jim Schwartz and Stefanski. I mean, what a bummer, man. They are supposed to be at the top of the line coaches, and they're just, have no team behind them. I do agree with Winston. If Jameis comes in, he is a player's quarterback, and I think he will get that team a little bit fired up in that stadium, to take on that division opponent and see if they can't maybe twist an ankle or two on Lamar and see if he can't sit a quarter or two. They're that kind of team. But honestly, talent wise, I think it's Garrett. They're talking about getting rid of him, right? So, it's I don't really know what they're going to give Baltimore at this point, other than the fact that they may take them lightly because I don't think there's anything there. Divisional game with that many points. If we get Winston, I'm leaning towards that Cleveland Browns, especially the way that Baltimore performs on the road as a favorite that way in that situation. And as far as that Jags Green Bay game, I talked about the Jags and how surprised I was from them in London, so if they can come back and not have any London drag and show up, that line is probably pretty spot on. I could see them giving that Green Bay team a fight at home. But again, from coaching standpoint, as Kiev said, this is a huge coaching mismatch. And it's really on both sides in both games. Now that we see how bad the Cleveland Browns coaching is. So yeah, my lean would be the Packers in that game though. Although I just do not see that Jags defense stopping the Love and that team from scoring. So especially with the scheming that LaFleur will do up for that team. So that's my lean.
Yeah, I don't. You know what? It's these never land lines are tough because the line really should go up. So as far as I'm concerned, but it's a tough spot. They're in the similar situation. They're in that sandwich spot before they play the Lions, and they've got to have their eyes on that. This Jacksonville defense has been atrocious. And we don't, the fact that they played New England doesn't give us any more information of improvement because New England can't do anything, obviously. So their defensive statistics improved against a horrible team. And they've got problems. And offensively, Jacksonville seemed to do a little bit better. It's just a matter of whether the receivers will hold on to the ball. And they had a great running game last week. I don't know whether they're going to be able to run the ball like that against Green Bay. I don't think so.
I meant Brian Thomas. That's his name. One thing I will say about Jacksonville is when you get a good offense and a bad defense, they're good backdoor cover teams.
Yeah.
And I look at that in college too. It's like Colorado is a dog. I'd rather be on them, but I don't like laying points as a favorite because someone will catch them. So it's almost like that 4.5 is very backdoorable, and Matt LaFleur is totally fine winning by 3 points or 2 points. So I will say that. And you're right, sandwich spots, both Green Bay and Detroit in a massive sandwich spot as they face each other. So that makes a lot of sense.
I'm probably unfamiliar to you two guys, but I'm getting I don't give a crap about betting to conformity, so to speak. These point spreads are tough to beat, but I think that if you can creatively get involved with money lines and teasers, that's the way to go. I'm just finding more success weaving in alternative bets with alternative lines and alternative ways to bet than trying to pound my head against the wall and being stubborn and saying, oh, I have to bet this game versus this spread. It just, it's a law of diminishing returns to not have an open mind and to not try to do new things. Albeit you have to do it in positive EV ways or close enough that the utility value is, worth more than what you're giving up. I don't have anything to say on the next two games. If you guys, Indy, Houston, my gosh, I don't know. Arizona, Miami, I don't know. I don't know how you come off the bye and you play as poorly as Miami did. I mean, they were in the game, but there's still something wrong with that team, and it might be a coaching issue at this point also. I know they're dinged up, but – and then Atlanta, Tampa Bay, what are you supposed to do with that game? I don't know. Anything on those three games on your mind? Actually, include the Chicago-Washington game. What are you supposed to do there?
Well, I mean, from the current lines, it's definitely a lot harder. I mean, Chris, I told you in Chicago on Monday morning very early that I'm betting them at Pick'em because it's a free roll based on Daniels. And now Daniels is most likely out and it's 2.5. So that's how you do this. Last night after the Godwin injury, I sat there on my DraftKings sportsbook like a complete degenerate hitting refresh until they popped their lineup. And I took a play on Atlanta -2, but I thought I'd go to 3. It did for a little bit. Now it's back down to 2.5. I think Evans is worth a half point to a point. I think Godwin is worth a half point at best, but I think both together being out is worth like 3.5 to 4 points, Chris. Mm-hmm. And so Atlanta is still short in this situation unless they get Cooper Kupp. We talked about. You can throw away Arizona and Miami in a garbage can right now because I don't even want to talk about that game. And Colts Texans, I have a play on that one that I can't discuss right now. But what I will say is the Colts are better with Flacco, and the Texans are a little bit fraudulent. So that's all I have to say, Tony.
Tony?
Yeah, Atlanta, Tampa Bay, injuries, Tampa Bay, Atlanta's just got to come back from that home loss and want to get a piece of this Tampa Bay team right now, being that they're a lame duck. And so I got to assume that be the case. And let's see, what was the next one we were talking about?
Indy, Houston, Chicago, Washington, Arizona, Miami.
Indy, Houston, nothing on that one. I can't believe Indy just keeps covering spreads every week. Hurt people, underdogs, whatever it is. So that surprises me a little bit. Houston, I think that they're overachieving, but I don't think Indy's going to give them too much personally. And as far as the Bears go, without Daniels in Washington, that defense could give them a tough day. I actually lean towards the under in that game the most in that. Washington's defense has been impressive actually, and I think that they could give old Williams there quite a trouble on their side, and I don't think they're going to score much. So yeah, that's a nice lean for me there. In fact, I'll probably go get on that right after we get off this. Other than that, no. Those are all games that I won't touch. So,
who's the backup for Washington? I don't even know.
Marcus Mariota.
That's duh.
Now, him with a competent Kingsbury type person might be able to do something, but everyone's thinking about what he did against Carolina, and you should not think like that. The Bears are going to have a pass rush. They're going to have some really. I mean, they're coming off a bye. They should have Gordon and Brisker back. So, be careful what you wish for there. If you're thinking that you're going to see the same kind of play with Mariota, there's a reason. He's a backup, and Jaden Daniels is the favorite for Rookie of the Year.
It seems like all right.
Yeah, Mariota came in when they quit already. So, you can't even think about anything like that. That other team was done already. So this will be a whole nother game for them if he does start.
I don't think the Jets are dead. Do you guys think the Jets are dead?
No, they're too embarrassed to be dead. They're going to have to try and still win some games. But there's going to be a point where they're going to realize that the door is closed. And then that's when you fade the heck out of them. And it's not going to come for another 4 or 5 weeks, in my opinion. And there's going to be a lot of just drama going on with the whole Aaron Rodgers situation. He brings it upon himself. I do not feel sorry for that situation. But the whole Devontae Adams thinking that was going to fix something was laughable to me. And I'm really kicking myself for not betting the Steelers. I even think Circa might have hanged a 3 or something from right before that game. But yeah, they're going to be done. But these guys are not done yet. There's a lot of times when the media is like, oh, these guys know they're done. They're not going to play. It's like, yes, they are. For a while, they're going to play unless they completely hate their coach. And then at some point, they're going to give up. I don't think we're at that point in the season yet.
I see Double Up made a point here that I think it's Caleb's homecoming game. Is he from Washington? Is that his home state, hometown?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't like.
Caleb's from Washington, so that's a great point.
Okay.
Is Metcalf playing? Do we know
on that jet?
Oh, go ahead.
I think his knee is still hurt, Chris. I think we don't know yet. Doesn't sound like it's too serious. So, he's a tough big dude. So I could see him throwing a wrap on it and coming out and trying to get a couple across the middle just to do his part anyway. So.
The Bills Seahawks, that would have been an interesting night game. It's kind of buried in, it's better than most of the Thursday games that we get. Although this one would have been, they were healthier, would have been a better game. I'm not a big believer in these Bills. Are you guys a big believer in these Bills? I saw somebody in the comments say the Bills are going to the Super Bowl. I think that there's very little chance of that.
Well, it's funny you make points about coaching with the Chiefs. The Chiefs don't have that great of an offense. Their defensive coordinator seems to be the man. So where are the Bills? Well, I don't know. Can they get through the whole season with a linebacker? I think the Bernard thing is huge. I think Taylor Rapp, their safety, needs to play. If they can get in there. I mean, Matt Milano's always out, but he's awesome if he's not. But he's done. I believe he can't even come back for the playoffs. I'll double check that. But yes, I am a believer in the Bills if they get to the playoffs. Because I just seen too many Lamar chokes in the playoffs. I think that Kansas City can be vulnerable, and that's the only reason, really. If it was like the Chiefs of 3 years ago, I would say no. If they're competing against the Chiefs of 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I just don't think the AFC is as far top heavy as people think this year. I think that they're in the mix.
Tony, you a believer in the Bills?
I agree with you, Kiev. I actually, I'm a believer in Josh Allen. So if you want to make a believer out of anybody, I think that kid can win a game when he needs it. And in the years past, he's lost games for that team. And this year he's not doing it. So clearly something's come over him this year, maturity. He doesn't have the weapons that he's had in the past. And if the defense can keep doing what they're doing, I have no doubt that they're gonna give every bit of AFC trouble there. So,
okay. Oh boy, Jesus! This just turned my stomach. Saints Chargers.
Too many Saints memories.
No.
Go ahead, Tony.
Just. I don't even know what to say. I had actually a small bet earlier in the season at 100-1 on Rattler having the most passing yards as a rookie. I was thinking that Carr might get warped out earlier than he was and possibly hurt or whatever it might be, and he'd get thrown in the mix. And but the kid's just over his head right now. He's got a lot of work to do. Maybe he gets some receivers in, but he's a one read guy, and if he can't find that, then it's all downhill. So, I think he'll get another game or two maybe to show before Carr's back. But they're useless games for them. I think their season's washed. I think they know it. So we'll see when they get Carr back, and if Olave is healthy and they get that receiving core, maybe they can put up some points again. But I think we all know that first 2 games was kind of a fluke. Now that we've seen them play the rest of the season.
Yeah, Chris, do you play center? I think they could use one over there with all their center issues. But it's not just that. I mean, what Tony just said is a great point, because the whole Dallas blowout hasn't aged that well, and the Carolina blowout certainly hasn't aged that well either. It's like after 2 weeks you think, oh, the Saints might be making the playoffs or farther, but no, it was never there. And it's Dallas's fault, really, I think. But they're so injured, and now they lose Shaheed for the season to repair his meniscus. And Olave's question. Rashid, their second best receiver.
Oh, yeah.
That some people said is the best receiver. It just depends upon if you buy Olave over him. But 3 centers still out. I guess Cesar Ruiz is questionable. What's funny is we always forget about Ramczyk. He's been out since last year, and he's still out. I mean, he was their best offensive lineman, but no, this team is so banged up. And if you want to talk about quit, the fact that they have a bad coach, I would bet that this team's not quitting yet, but I think that they could be first to quit this year.
How can anybody lay 7.5 with the Chargers? I mean, they'd have to kick how many field goals to cover that? I mean, they can't get in the end zone. It's just it's amazing.
You're the kicker.
Now this is an interesting game. The Eagles and the Bengals. I've said since the start of the season that I don't like the Eagles. I don't like their coaching. I don't like the fact that they literally quit last year, and they may start off well this year, but I don't think if you have the personality that you quit, yeah, you can bring it up to the surface, and you can look, you can try hard for a period of time, but there's always that quit in you, and you're going to quit again at some point. And Philadelphia looked really good last week. How long is that going to last before they go up in flames the next time? And then on the Bengals side of things, they got hit with injuries again. Their offense looked like crap. Very difficult game for me to read on either team at this point. How about you?
Me too. I bet twice against the Bengals the last 2 weeks and lost. Last week was weirder because of the injuries, but maybe they cover 6.5. It closed at 5.5. I had 6.5. It sucks to have line value, of course, but that's how it's life, with living that forever. But it's like, do I bet against them the third time? I'm not a believer in either team, really. But what I will say is the Cincinnati Bengals rush defense ranks 30th in opponent rush EPA. So this should be a focused Barkley game, right? A focused Barkley game, and also tush push and all that. They should not let Joe Burrow have a lot of time on this field. If it comes to a shootout, anything's possible. But the Eagles just need to run, and just not let the offensive weapons for Cincinnati be out. If that's the case, then I'll like the Eagles. But I just don't know, because I don't like either coach. So I don't know.
I agree with you there with the coaching. Absolutely hate both coaches. Think they just lose games just individually as coaches. Cincinnati, offensively, we were supposed to get more from them last week. Doesn't surprise me really that Cleveland kind of shut them down a tad, being the division team they are. Kind of used to Burrow. Kind of had probably some wonk there to keep them down. But Cincinnati, they should be lights out offensively. There shouldn't be anybody stopping them. On what Kiev said in regards to Philly and the run attack, that needs to be Philly's number one option. Now, my thought is we just saw Barkley just have probably one of the most emotional games he's had since he's been an Eagle, right? Headed to back to New York, just ran for, got 170 yards or whatnot. So I don't know if he's up for a back-to-back performance like that. I think he may come in and do some damage, but I don't know about a back-to-back performance. In this spot, which, I did take a look at earlier, is Cincinnati is 10-0 against the spread in the last 10 against Philly. So this has just been an absolute own fest, and it surprised me when I looked at it, being that Philly's been a good team over the years. So, but Cincinnati's owned them, and I think this might be a spot where they're going to continue to own them, just based on home and just momentum. Cincinnati needs this, so that's my thought.
Well, Sheldon Rankins was out for a while too for Cincy, so wasn't he? Somebody was out on defense, so they did get healthier on the defensive side. So I will say that about Cincinnati, that they did get healthier, but it's still a running game, and they can't turn over the ball running game type for the Eagles. Go ahead, Chris.
I don't think this. Well, there are threes currently on this game. Well, no, I guess they've kind of they're just a couple.
There's a few DraftKings
far away places.
Cincinnati did lose one of their safeties to a broken leg. Looks like too.
Somebody on their old line too.
And then tackle.
Their left tackle.
Yeah, tackle Orlando Brown, left tackle. Yeah.
I think it can get to 3, but it's going to be a soft 3. So, I think that the Bengals will be a popular teaser leg. Or I'm sorry, the Eagles will be a popular teaser leg this week too. So keep that in mind. You can always tease the Eagles. They have backdoor ability with those 2 receivers there, and so I could see myself teasing the Eagles.
Now,
agree with the teaser. That's a nice play.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I think in fact, I think I did play a Philadelphia teaser already. I needed to do an emergency teaser, and I threw Philly in on a 10-pointer plus 13 because there were multiple threes earlier at DraftKings and Bookmaker, and those are down to 2.5 now. So there's your answer. Let's not forget, for whatever reason, the Raiders seem to be a chief killer when you least expect it. Last year, I remember having the perfect setup. All I needed was Kansas City to win the frickin' game, and they lose. They didn't even get a first down for I forget what it was. There were ridiculous stats in that game.
They didn't complete a pass after the first quarter.
Yeah.
The Raiders did not complete one pass after the first quarter and won the game. It was something historical.
Yeah. Just amazing. So the game scares the lights out of me. That's all I got to say. You guys see any angle on this game I'm not seeing?
I do.
I just think anytime you put 2
go ahead, Tony.
division teams together, you're going to see you never know what you're going to see. So, and these 2 teams are super familiar with each other. This could be a letdown spot for KC too. They're not exactly lights out right now offensively. So we'll see after last week's game if they can show up. But Las Vegas is garbage. Garbage. I don't even think Las Vegas fans want to watch them. So who knows what we're going to see this week, quarterback-wise. So we'll see.
What were you going to say, Kiev?
Well, Chris, you know what they got in their stocking last year, Mahomes. They got Cole in their stocking on Christmas for losing to the Raiders. That's bad. And you can say revenge spot. I'm sure they did not have a Merry Christmas, and the Raiders did. And Antonio Pierce got the job, and that happened to be an extremely terrible decision, but we saw that happen. And maybe he christened it when he beat Denver. But more importantly, the Raiders brought out Kermit the Frog. Okay? They brought out Kermit the Frog and made fun of Mahomes. And they asked Mahomes about it, and he said they'll address it next year. So maybe you get the biggest revenge pissed off spot that you've ever seen in your entire life with this Kansas City Chiefs team. But it's also a massive spread on an Andy Reid team that doesn't care if they win by how many points, but maybe the players care. It's Chiefs or nothing. I don't want to lay it, but I probably would. I'd probably lay it. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah, those are some good comments on that that I think could play a role. I don't think that KC will take them lightly, there's some incentive to stick it to them, really.
And 10-point teaser would bring them down to 0-2 if you want to do that too.
The Raiders just signed Desmond Ridder to the active roster for the backup role.
They may hold out a little bit for this Christmas. They play each other again. So, they may take it a little easy on them and just pound it at Christmas just to give all them Raider fans a nice Christmas present right back. So,
Kiev, what's your hardcore number on Denver, Carolina?
I was just going to say, I don't think the Raiders have even had a home field advantage this year. If you saw the Pittsburgh game, you see that. You saw the amount of terrible towels there. Carolina, Denver is kind of like what I said before. Is the market even reading this team right that they're so bad? I'm just going to tell you what my algorithm says in this, which is probably going to be ridiculous. Being that it actually takes, efficiency scores and puts them together. I'm just looking for loss. Denver, it is minus, Jesus Christ, minus 18.9. It has minus 18.9 is the spread that shoots out of my algorithm. So I'm just being honest. This is like literally using their yards per point and all the metrics that you use to put them together. And to be honest with you, at the end of the season, this algorithm is very close to the lines. It's actually, I use it and I haven't had a tweak in a while, but my power ratings have this game, a little bit closer. I think I have Denver only a 10.25 point spread for my power ratings, Chris.
Yeah, the reason I asked is because I too have a number in that neighborhood, and it's just hilarious to consider Denver, 18 and a half points better than anybody at this point. Even though I do like Denver, as Tony said, their defense is good. In fact, their defense is literally at the top currently. Without making, various adjustments. So they're doing quite well. Boy, the Dallas 49ers, I'm starting to wonder how far the 49ers are going to be able to go at this point. That Ayuk injury and Purdy looked fallible last week. CMC, I don't know. They're going to rush him back to save the day. They're very fortunate they don't have any other good teams in their division, because right now I believe all four teams in the NFC North would be in the playoffs right now, eating up playoff spots.
Yeah. So Bears. This Niners team, man, you're right. It's coming down. If Juwan Jennings plays, I think I would hopefully wish for a 3, and then maybe I'd be interested in Niners. The Cowboys just can't win against good teams, or what we perceive as good. It's not just that they get blown out by them. It's just a weird thing, kind of like Lamar in the playoffs. It's just almost predictable. It's like you feel like you get value with Dallas. I'm guessing Micah Parsons is going to play, Chris. I'm guessing that.
You think so?
That's a big part of it because somebody's got to get to Purdy. But the Niners are also so banged up, and I guess Purdy got pretty reamed out by Shanahan at the locker for about 10 minutes from what I heard.
For what?
For sucking last game. I mean, literally, he was just overthrowing guys right into the Chiefs' pockets. It was pretty bad looking out. Like I said, you can blame the receivers coming out, but it was part Purdy. I expect a bounce back from Purdy, and if Jennings is in, remember when Juwan Jennings had that great game when I think Ayuk was still holding out, and I think Debo might have been out that game or two. Jennings had a monster, so if he's healthy, which he has a hip pointer, then I'd be looking towards the Niners, but that's it. That's the only way I would.
Tony?
Real quick on that Denver game, if we go back a minute, they're going to get Surtain back too, so as bad as it is, it got even worse now with him. So Carolina's been historical 30 years. I don't know if there's anybody been worse than them in the last 2 years. So when you put those two teams together, I'm not so sure what you're going to get there. And when you guys have a number set up at 17, I can see it happening. And, as far as the Niners and Cowboys go, we got Dallas is on 10 days rest coming in. They should get, a lot of their big names back on defense, I would think. And with the injuries in San Fran, that's going to be a tough night for them. I think that line might be a little long, in my opinion. Once it got over that 3.5, I think it might be a little long. So I definitely am going to see a pretty comeback. And yeah, Dallas hasn't shown us anything, but if they're going to show up at any time, this kind of has to be one of those games that they need to kind of keep it close to have any faith in this season, right? And I could see old Dak over there doing that.
I don't ever recall seeing a team last in offense and defense before, but Carolina is. And you're right. I just noticed the actual team rating, and I've never seen a team that bad that's got the highest number I've ever seen in my charts. So
historical.
Yeah. This San Francisco, yeah. I really thought I'd be on San Francisco this week, and that's not going to be the case. I can't find a way to bet them. I don't think.
Moneyline parlay is the only thing, but do you want to do that?
No, well, see, I was doing some funky stuff from last week to this week, and as soon as the lines came out, I got a decent price on 49ers in teasers plus money or plus points. And then I realized this morning I got to get off of that because this line could go down to 3. And so I needed to I just got off of that and took the Cowboys plus 14.5, just to get off of the San Francisco position.
Makes sense to me. City by the Bay asked a question about 10-point teasers. It's 3 teams to get down to the minus 110 or 120, depending upon your book. So that's typical for 10-point teasers. You still want, it's obviously still going through the 2 and the 3, the 3 and the 7 is the key thing to do because that moves the percentage value up much more. Chris, any comment? Or Tony?
Yeah, the 10-pointers can be used differently. They don't. There's many ways to use 10-pointers without them being longs. But they're also very dangerous. You have to win at they're typically 120 or 130 juice. Some shops are charging more than that. You can't pay more than 130 in those. And even 130 is tough because you've got to win at a rate over 84%. I forget the exact number. So there aren't too many situations that you can use them, but they come in real handy. And one of the ways that I like to use 10 pointers is to take a 6.5 point favorite and get them to plus 3.5, or a 2.5 point favorite and get them to plus 7.5. There's some instances you can take up through the 10 and the 11 would be the keys, but not always. There's a lot of instances that they're no good. So they're dangerous. You just got to be careful. Last game, Giants and Steelers. That's a lot of – Pittsburgh looked darn good, didn't they?
Absolutely. But can you lay points with the Steelers the past three? That's always the question. And sorry if I jumped ahead, by the way, to the Niners last game, Tony. I totally wasn't paying attention. But Steelers, I think Russell Wilson is very erratic, and you kind of saw him cement his like on the man thing. And that's when Russell Wilson just kind of comes back and you're like, what's this guy? One thing about the Giants is they have pieces on that defense. They just got to bring them all together, and they don't like to do that, it seems. But believe it or not, the Giants actually rank okay in pass EPA. I think it's like 8th or something. I'm going to pull it up right now on dropback EPA from a defense, and the Bears are number 1. The Giants. Oh, no, I'm wrong. They're in the middle. They're actually 19th in dropback EPA. I think Kayvon Thibodeau is key to this team. I don't know if he's playing yet. If he's in, I'd be interested more in the Giants side, and I just don't think it's right to lay points with a Steelers team that is more of a punch you in the mouth, slow it down, and I don't trust Russell Wilson in a shortened week in this letdown spot. So
it wouldn't be a short week.
You're right. So you're right. It's they played Thursday night.
Yeah, Thursday night to Monday night.
You're right. Actually, it's a long for them. I still don't trust Russell Wilson, I guess is my whole point. But they might have a little extra time actually. But it's a letdown spot because they beat the Jets and Aaron Rodgers. So that's probably the key.
Tony?
Yeah, I don't trust Russell Wilson whatsoever. But, that loss of Andrew Thomas over there on the offensive line for the Giants is probably the biggest loss that they could have. What was already a line that was, skeptical, he's now just it's bad now. So, the Steeler team, very physical at home. They played really good. And, I think I saw a stat that, New York teams playing at night in primetime games are like 4-24 in the last 28 games.
Yeah, it's really
so that applied to the Jets this week. And so it applies again this week. Getting to 6.5 with the Steelers is really tough for me. And the Giants, believe it or not, I think if you look up Dabble's against the spread record, it's pretty good for a coach. I know that maybe not so much this year, but as far as his history, his against the spread record is pretty good. But I don't trust Daniel Jones. He's going to start going against this defense and J.J. Watt. You're going to see some turnovers. So, again, laying 6.5 with the Steelers on at home probably would be my lean, but I know that's not strong whatsoever.
So Goodwin's out Evans is out for the season. Goodwin's out for 4 weeks. It's just a real punch in the gut for Tampa. We already knew that. We've gone on for almost 90 minutes, and I know Tony had an appointment afterward. So any other he took it upon himself to make fun of my last place standing in the VEASAN contest that we're both invited to, and I took it, and all I'm saying is I'm catching up to you, and I started off horribly, and I had a good week.
I'm more excited.
I'm going to end up there, Chris. So don't you worry. We're going to end up flipping spots.
I'm more excited for Tony's Survivor. Top 99 percentile in Survivor is pretty freaking awesome. I think about Tony's Survivor every week. I don't want to talk to him. I don't want to ask him what he's doing, but I'm rooting for you, man. It would be nice to be the only one to win that 14 million, or just even split it with 5 to 10 ways would be just fine, I'm sure. Great job. I went out with the Ravens at week 2. But I'm proud of you, man. You always come up big in these things. So I'm just telling you, I'm rooting for you.
Yeah,
thank
me
you,
too.
Kev.
And then,
I'll
give you $250 for a quarter share.
Yep, I went.
Oh, what a year though, man! With all these big favorites just getting knocked out early. I don't know how I weave through the landmines. I think I always talk about every year when we get into this millions, that, the Survivor really isn't my skill set, picking these spreads are. And it seems like it's kind of opposite this year. I am absolutely shitting the bed with the spreads. So maybe we can make a run with the Survivor thing. So,
well, this is where you want to be in Survivor, but you got to know how to bet your way out of it, because there's too many people that don't know how to preserve, a nice payday out of it. They're gonna sit there and they're gonna pick. I don't know there's about 200 people in there, and I'm gonna guess, at least 60-70% of the people don't know how to preserve a big chunk of money for themselves, and it's going to be interesting because it adds a lot of pressure on those people where they're still in the all or nothing, mode. And then what gets you in trouble is you can't just keep on betting against yourself, because then that starts to add up. It's kind of interesting. Kiev, how you doing in the contest? You got any hope anywhere?
No, not really. I was kind of hovering until last week's 1 and 4. I switched the Lions out like an idiot and didn't take Denver, which was my inclinations. But that's life, man. I mean, you're hemming and hawing on Thursday a little bit. You're like, is this enough value for me to go in? If it was 2.5, I would have, but it was 3, so I didn't. But hey, there's always quarterlies, and that's what we play for with Circa. There's quarterlies, and I'm also in a college Survivor that I'm still alive in, which is nice. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people still alive in, because last week we had to pick 2, and I took Tulane and San Jose State. I was kind of hoping Clemson would go down to Virginia. I was hoping there's another big one that Vanderbilt would have went down to Ball State. Well, that game was tied in the 4th quarter, but Vanderbilt won. It's just one of those things with college. It's almost like these 30-point spreads are almost freaking guaranteed, but there has been a couple upsets this year. But I plan on splitting that with like 100 people probably, and that would be just $1,000 a piece. It was a $100 buy-in. So, that's what I got for contest wise. And the Raiders knocked me out with that awful pass interference call on week 2 in Circa. So it's life, man, and you got to survive that stuff. And I'm just happy I'm in a couple still and having fun with it, man. How about you?
Well, I was in last place in Wiesn, and after last week, I at least have a pulse. I certainly can't win it, but I just want to make a good showing. And I actually have a heartbeat in the other contest, so I'm not in Survivor, but I have a heartbeat in the other ones, and that's where I'm sitting. So appreciate you joining, Tony. Best wishes to you on the Survivor, and upward mobility in the VSIN contest. Try to stay ahead of me to keep me incentivized. And Kiev, thanks for joining. And people can find you at the Odds Breakers, right?
Yes, the Odds Breakers is the main site, theoddsbreakers.com. I use that Twitter handle as well as just the broadcasting for it. My personal's at OB Kiev. Just if you ever want to get fun information, we're not just a pick place. We do metrics, as you know. We do misleading box scores and betting spots, and there's an article that goes out all week for that. I'm just releasing a fantasy football article right now for any of you fantasy players. We just like to have fun like you guys do. So thanks again for having me, Chris. one of my favorite shows. So I really appreciate it. And great to see you, Tony.
Thanks for everybody joining, and thanks again, Tony and Kiev, and I'll see you guys
Chris,
soon.
thanks for having me, buddy. I appreciate it. And
Sure.
and Kiev, real quick, man, you do a great job on your site, man, and should be proud of yourself.
Cool.
A lot of people need to lean on you a little more, and you're a bright dude, and it's a pleasure to talk to you and chat football, man. So again, thanks, Chris.
Good luck, guys.